Hi, welcome back to Mr. Slover's Math. Today we're going to talk about the greatest common factor. So this warm-up is just asking you to research what factors are in relation to math. So hopefully you found something along the lines of factors are numbers that you multiply together to get another number. You may have found the opposite where it was division. But today we're going to focus on two numbers that multiply to give you another number. So an example, 2 times 3 equals 6. The 2 and the 3 are the factors. And a number can have many factors. So 10 could have 1 times 10 or 2 times 5. Now I want to point out that 2 times 5 is the exact same as 5 times 2. You're still going to get 10. That's your commutative property of multiplication. That order doesn't matter there. Now let's talk about the vocabulary term common factors. So if I have numbers 8 and 12, and I list all the factors of 8, and I list all the factors of 12, I want to find the ones that they have in common. Well, think about what in common means. They have something that they share. Okay, so 1, they each have a 1. They each have a 2. They each have a 4. And that's it. So those are the numbers that they share. Those are the common factors, 1, 2, and 4. Now you're thinking, well, Mr. Stover, what about 8 or 12? They both have to have those, right? To be in common is something that they both have, they both share. So the only numbers they both share are 1, 2, and 4. So we're going to go and we're going to take this one step further. We are looking for the greatest common factor, which is the acronym GCF, and that's the largest number that they both have in common. Now, for purposes of this class, we're focusing on binomials. We realize that you could have a greatest common factor for trinomials or for any other polynomials, but we're just going to focus on binomials. So the largest number that they both have in common, well, 1, 2, and 4. So of those three numbers, which one is the largest? Well, that would be 4. So my GCF, my greatest common factor between 8 and 12, is 4. Now, example 1 is just getting us ready to figure out how to list factors. Factors of 27, you have 1 in 27, 3 times 9. For 98, you have 1 times 98, 2 times 49, 7 times 14. Now, C and D might seem a little bit weird. It says x to the fourth and x squared. I'm really looking for us to expand this. So x to the fourth is really saying x times x times x times x. And really, those are factors. Because remember, factors are just two numbers that multiply to give you another one. Yes, there's a variable. But remember, the variable represents an unknown number, an unknown quantity. So we're going to use it like they are like a number. X squared could be expanded as x times x. Now, right now, C and D don't really make a whole lot of sense, but they will when we get into example 3. So we're going to start example 2 by finding the greatest common factor of the following. Now, it looks like there's a whole lot going on here, but all I did for all of these, and you're going to see this, is I just listed all of the factors of the numbers. That's why it looks like there's a lot going on and that it's complicated. Because I listed all of the factors so we can see what was going on. So my factors of 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Of 40, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. I am circling the largest number they have in common. Right? That's what the greatest common factor is. So yes, they have a 1 in common. Yes, they have a 2 in common. Yes, they have a 4 in common. But I'm focusing on the largest, the greatest. So in this case, it is an 8. So my GCF is 8. For letter B, I'm listing all of my factors of 24, listing my factors of 32. And once again, my greatest common factor is 8. And I do the same thing for letter C. Now, as you get comfortable with listing factors or identifying the greatest common factor, You may find that you don't have to actually list all of the factors. You may be able to just think to yourself, for 14 and 49, well, 7. 7 goes into both of them, and that's the largest number. Or maybe you're looking at your factor chart and your fingers are on 14 and 49 and you're kind of just looking at them and you identify that 7 is the greatest number. That's fine. You don't have to show your work here. I'm just showing you all of the factors so you know why I'm choosing whatever number I chose. So for letter E, my greatest common factor was 5. For letter F, 9 and 23, the largest number they have in common is 1. So if your greatest common factor is 1, which it is here, that means that it's prime. So anytime you see prime, that means like there's not really anything we can do to it. Okay, we can't factor anything out. Okay? So just 1 or prime. Now example 3, we're going to take it one step further and we're going to add a variable. So directions are still the same. Find the greatest common factor. We're going to break it into 2 parts. We're going to focus on the coefficients, so 40 and 8, and then we're going to move to the variables, x squared and x to the 4th. So I list my factors of 40, list my factors of 8. Okay, so I'm breaking it into 2 parts, the coefficients and then the variables. So coefficients, my greatest common factor is 8. Okay. But I also have variables, so I need to look at the variables. I have x squared and x to the 4th. Now, both of those are the same letter. So that means they do have something in common. I mean, they're the same letter. They got to have something in common. So I'm expanding this out. X squared is x times x. X to the 4th is x times x times x times x. Those should look familiar because those were in example 1. So I circled what they had in common. They had these 2 in common and those 2 in common. Now you're thinking, Mr. Silver, what about these 2? Well, over here, this 40x squared didn't have any more x's. It only had 2 of them. So that means they only had 2 of them in common. Now that doesn't mean it's 2x. Okay? It's x times x. And remember, your product rule means that you're going to add your powers together. So I get x squared. So my greatest common factor is 8x squared. Letter B, same thing. I'm going to look at the coefficients first, and then I'm going to look at the letters. So my coefficients are 24 and 8. So I look at 24, I look at 8. My greatest common factor for the coefficients is 8. Now I move on to the variables. Are they the same letter? Yes. If they are, then I can go ahead and factor something out, or I can go ahead and identify a greatest common factor for the variables. I have a y and a y times y. So I circle the y, I can take out one of them. Maybe thinking, well, I took out one of them, but you circled 2 of them. Why didn't you write y squared? It's the same thing with the 8. The greatest common factor for the coefficient was an 8. I didn't write 88. I didn't do 8 times 8. I just wrote 8 because that was one of them that they had. That was the greatest they had in common. Same idea for the variable. Now letter C, same thing. Look for the greatest common factor. I list my factors of the coefficients, which are 30 and 15. I expand my variables. They're the same letter. I've got 3 of them. So my greatest common factor is 15x cubed. Now for letter D, I look at 49 and 7, my coefficients. My greatest common factor is the 7 for the coefficients. Then I look at my letters. Right? These are not the same, right? X and Y are not the same. So I don't have a variable with my greatest common factor. I just have the number 7. Letter E, I've got my coefficients. My letters match. So I'm going to be able to take out a number and a variable. 1 is the greatest common factor for the coefficients. That's fine. Since I have the same letter, I can take out something, right? They both have something in common. Now, instead of writing everything out like I did in the previous examples, if they are the same letter, you will take out the lowest power. And that's what this note in green is. And this will always work. So I have d cubed and d. Same variable. I take out the lowest power. And my lowest power is d to the first. So I took out a d, lowest power. Now let's go back and look at letter A, B, and C. Let's see if that worked. X squared and x to the fourth. Same letter. My lowest power was x squared. That's what was in my greatest common factor. I have a y and a y squared. My lowest power was a y, and that's what I took out in my greatest common factor. I have an x cubed and an x to the sixth. Same letter. My lowest power is x cubed, and that's what I took out. So letter F, same concept. I list my factors, and then I take out the lowest power because they are matching variables. So your greatest common factor, you're looking for the largest number or variable that they have in common. Sometimes it's a variable, sometimes it's a number, sometimes it's both. So if you have questions, make sure you ask. Otherwise, thanks for stopping in. Till next time.